TL Square. TL Square. TL Square. Podcast.
The California Exodus today.
Yes, let's talk about that. What's happening in the recent years, since the pandemic, really, or maybe even before?
Yeah.
A lot of musicians, creative people, and also others have left California to move to somewhere cheaper and somewhere safer and somewhere more affordable in general, especially musicians, I think. We've experienced leaving. I mean, there was even 10 years ago, there was kind of a bit of an exodus towards Nashville because at the time, you can get some killer houses, with enough space to build a studio and whatever, in like Lepus Fork and, Franklin and all those places.
It's going down now, so you can still compare it to here. I mean, it's night and day.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But especially, I think, in the last 2 years, like since the pandemic,
Yep.
There's been an incredible sort of exodus of musicians,
Yep.
friends of
it's
ours,
crazy, man. Yeah.
and even you.
Yeah. I mean, not yet, but soon.
Not yet, but you're playing
Definitely.
with the idea. And
Yeah.
so, what's your stance on that? Why is that a
Well,
consideration?
You know what? I have friends that were there, and so I started taking my family there to visit. And I know for first off, I'm from California, so I remember when the scene here was crazy and just super cracking and all the studios going, and I mean, it was just a whole thing. That energy has completely gone, even before the pandemic, but definitely after the pandemic.
Right.
I mean, we have major studios closing.
Right.
You have cartage people. I've had cartage people say, hey, man, I had 2 things, in the last
Right.
month, or, it's just not the same business. And part of it's because of the technology, because so many of
Right.
us can cut at home. But the other part is the way this state is being governed, in my opinion, is just terrible. I mean,
Right.
we have horrible homeless,
Oh yeah.
issues around in neighborhoods where the median house price is $1.5 million.
Yeah.
And you got homeless people all on your, block. They've opened homeless shelters across the street from high schools.
Right.
I mean, and the thing that really sticks out to me is the crime, right?
Right.
The crime that's come from a lot of transients, a lot of homeless people.
Right.
And yeah, it's mental illness too, but the reality is a lot of that community commits a lot of crime and robbery.
Right.
I've seen it tick up in my neighborhood. And then the state as a whole doesn't really want you to do anything about it. They just, want you to call 911 and they'll miraculously be
Right.
there in real time.
No.
So that's just poorly governed. I mean, you see the city councils falling apart. Los
Right.
Angeles City Council, has some other issues a few months back, but then just last week they caught a guy that's been completely, doing what I think all they do, and which is all of them do, which is he set up a company under his wife. And for years, these contractors and people have been paying the bribes to that company that is set up, and then he'll go and vote in favor of them getting these contracts.
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
but to me, I think they all do that at some degree.
Yeah. There's a lot of corruption in that.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like, it's just the way it's been governed, man. And, I mean, this guy's not guilty yet because he haven't had a trial, but he's been kicked off he had to resign.
Right.
And there was some other fraud that happened with him with, like, healthcare, with whatever it is. But just to me, these people feel like they're above the law. I mean, even the mayor, there was a big lawsuit. I mean, it just miraculously went away when she became mayor. But, I mean, where'd it go? She's not a different person.
Right.
So, but whatever with that. I mean, nobody reads, so most people don't even know
Right.
about that stuff. But the reality is, at the end of the day, it's just becoming a place that's not really appealing anymore. I mean, there's a concept of the homeless industrial complex, right?
Right.
And to me, I believe that these people in power now make more money for the homeless problem staying.
Right.
Because they're getting funding and this and a
Right.
nonprofit this and federal money and this. So I don't think it's really to their best interest to really eliminate the problem.
Right.
So they're just going to keep doing things to put temporary things on it, but in all those transactions, they're getting money. So it's
Yeah.
like, we don't want to eradicate the homeless problem because that will stop all this money.
Well,
coming in.
and I think a big contributing factor is the fact that if you look at what housing costs,
Right.
interest rates at the mortgage,
Yeah,
mortgage
yeah,
interest rates
yeah,
at the moment,
yeah.
rents, and all the new laws that have been sort of passed since COVID
Oh.
with eviction laws and
Oh.
protection of tenants or landlords.
Yeah.
And all that, it has become so ridiculously expensive, like almost cost prohibitive to live here as this sort of average musician or creative
Sure.
person or writer, whatever
Yeah.
you are. Because, I mean, in LA, for those of you who are listening, if you rent a one-bedroom apartment somewhere in Hollywood or, I don't know, a decent area,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think is the average rent on that?
Well, I just saw a news. I was just yesterday. I was literally on my Instagram, and just ironically, because I told my wife about it. There was a house in Gardena
Yeah.
that was going for like almost $4,000,
Right. Oh, yeah.
and I was like, dude, what? What? That just makes zero sense. Man.
Yeah,
It's
here
ridiculous.
in this, yeah, I mean, and what's that, like a 3-bedroom house?
Yeah,
Let's say,
I mean, and not new, in,
Right.
in the area,
of course.
bro. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't get anything like that around here.
No.
A 3-bedroom house in like a decent area, not even a great area.
Right.
5, 6, easy minimum.
I mean,
Dude,
it's just
and a rent like in a small studio apartment in Hollywood, you have to expect at least like $1,500 or so, even for
bad parking.
exactly
the
bad
car
parking.
getting broken into.
Absolutely, and not a great area.
Yeah.
And not a place where you, as a musician, can like rehearse or practice or anything like that, unless you're freaking, maybe, as a guitarist or something, but not as a drummer.
Right.
You
Not
need
as
to
a drummer.
rent a separate space and pay at least $500-600, at least minimum for
Even
a
that,
decent,
yeah.
decent room. So, just your monthly overheads are, and that's not counting food or phone bills or gas or
Yeah.
any insurances or healthcare or anything like
Right,
that.
right.
So, I think your minimum expenses per month, if you're living in LA as a struggling musician's minimum, would be about $4,000.
Yeah,
If
that's
you-
very,
That's really
very
frugal.
bare minimum.
Yes,
man.
that's the absolute minimum.
Yeah.
I'll
And if you,
interject as well, like 2-bed by me, just
Oh,
the
2 bed.
Valley, $3,000.
oh yeah, double
Yeah.
it exactly, easy.
Yeah,
If you have a family or you live with someone and you need 2 bedrooms or have a flatmate or whatever and you want to share, that would be at least $3,000 or $3,500 just for your apartment.
And then the question is about that is, what are you even gonna do as a musician to offset that in
Exactly.
California? Because the club scene, like the way it was, like in the '90s when you really had Sunset on Fire and
Right.
so many clubs and every place had music. I mean, that's so different now. That's a lot of that's been replaced by DJs.
Oh yeah.
There's so much crime that a lot of these places don't want to even take on the responsibility
Exactly.
of that because there's so much crime, and it's just becoming, I've seen it just change into a whole nother place. Not to mention now the weather pattern is changed.
Yeah, what's going on? Isn't that crazy?
I think they said we have another El Nino, so in the fall it could potentially be raining for like a year off and on.
Right.
Like, 'cause I was here for the first El Nino in the early '90s. Bro, it seemed like it rained forever.
It seems like it's been raining for a year now. I mean,
Bro.
seriously, since last October.
Yeah.
This isn't California anymore.
No, and we've just now started barely getting hot in almost
Exactly.
July.
I know.
I've never seen a June
Never.
that wasn't hot.
Exactly.
Like, it's like that whole thing is changing. I mean, you have, the school, my kids are in a charter school, but I've seen the regular school district. They
Right.
got all kind of issues going
Yeah.
on in the big, in the big school district out here. It's just not governed. To me, it's just not being governed
Right.
right. And wherever you fall on the governor and his extreme views and things he's trying to do. I drove one day I was on my way home in Studio City. There was a gas station on the corner of Laurel Cane and Moore Park. I saw diesel was $7 and some change.
Yeah.
But then I drive, back home, Woodland Hills.
Right.
And what it's supposed to be, it was actually cheaper than super. So it
Right.
was like $4.65.
Right.
So how are we even in a place that's allowing
crazy?
gouging like that?
I know.
It's like, dude, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, it's just relentless.
Right.
You look at the groceries now.
Oh.
Bro, it's
I mean,
just
if
like,
you go
are
to,
you kidding
if
me?
you want decent quality, and that's another thing for me as a European, the whole food quality here and the
Yeah.
genetically modified crops and
Yeah,
all the,
yeah.
it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And all
They
the
just approved
artificial
fish,
sugar.
by the way. Yeah.
Right,
They
exactly.
disapprove
Yeah.
the lab fish. Yeah.
Like good.
Yeah.
But food quality control is really terrible here, and it's
Yeah.
all about making money, not actually decent food and so on. And you go to Trader Joe's or to Whole Foods or any kind of decent store, and you look at or Erewhon,
Right.
which is ridiculous. A bunch of parsley is like $13.
Oh no, it's it's like you got to be kidding me. But
I
see,
mean-
you're also on the healthcare side. You're also coming from a place that's socialized medicine. So
Oh yeah, of
that's
course.
a different. If you're already paying for all your citizens to get medical care, you don't want to keep them in there as much as possible.
Of course.
Here they're
Exactly.
making more money off you
Exactly.
being sick, so
It's
they
like
want
the-
to keep you in as much as
It's the
possible.
same with the prison system
Yeah,
here and
exactly.
privatized, incarceration, all that. Yeah, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And I think now it's come to a point here in California where there's a real tipping point. It's just too much. There's only
Mm-hmm.
so much that people can take. And I considered moving years ago, also Nashville. And
Yeah.
I was looking around, looking at houses, and then the situation changed here with work and
Mm-hmm.
my responsibilities, and but it's just like so over the top.
crazy,
It's so ridiculously expensive, and you feel, not only exploited but just.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
getting railed, from all
Yeah.
sides here financially.
Yeah, no, you feel it, man. I mean, you
And
absolutely feel it.
And then there's no way to offset it really with work.
Right.
Because everybody's struggling,
Yeah.
Everybody's making less than they did because of technology, because of, streaming services
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
streaming. We
all
don't
that.
know what the music costs anymore. It's like
Right.
they've devalued music.
And because of the clubs shutting down, because of crime, because of rents,
Yeah.
businesses are going down left, right, and center.
Yeah.
Clubs are closing, venues are closing, and studios are closing.
Yeah.
Everybody's working from home on their laptop. It's just a really different world than it used
Yeah.
to be. Even when I moved here,
Right. And the cut. See, and the other thing, as far as why I personally love Nashville, I mean, people are moving all over the place, right? But Texas, a lot of people moving to
Right.
Washington State.
Yeah, Austin. You know.
Yeah. But the reason I like Nashville, and there's a lot of places like this, but the one thing that got me was the normal overall sense of humanity that does not exist here.
Right. Yeah.
So just as people,
yeah.
it's a different level of respect and just and when you don't go there, then everybody has the old view from 60
Right.
years ago. It isn't that anymore.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, it isn't Jim Crow anymore.
Right.
It isn't that anymore.
Yeah.
Let's get off of that. It's not that.
Right.
Right. So and if we're going by statistics, don't get it twisted. Look at the
Right.
statistics of Los Angeles County for the census. You'll be
Oh yeah.
surprised.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's like I remember breaking down the fast food place, in the line in the middle of rush hour, and the guy coming over to me, and I'm thinking, I don't know what's going to happen. He's like, hey, man, you need some help?
Right.
That would have never happened here.
Yeah.
We literally saw people. There was an Instagram clip of people running into other cars because of a chicken sandwich. We literally saw
Yeah.
Popeye's chicken sandwich. Somebody was ramming cars
Oh, absolutely.
because they were taking too long. So it's a different frame of mind, and people try to look out. And on the music side, if you have a sessions at noon,
Right.
everyone's there at 11:45
Yeah.
by the latest. It's not the Hollywood,
Right.
and coming an hour late.
Right.
It's just not that, because everybody's trying to get home to their family for
Right.
dinner.
Yeah.
Out here, it's like, oh, yeah, I grinded for 3 days in the studio, and da-da-da. It's like, man, all that crap for
Right.
what? To go put out a song that has no value
Right.
with 50 writers on it?
Right.
You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Exactly.
When we're voting for the Grammys, man, I hate to say it, but when I'm voting for the Grammys, and you pick your categories, right? So I always do country, pop, jazz, and hip hop.
Right.
And, or some combination of that. But, man, when you get to hip hop, the spaces of the songs start to be like from this to
Right.
this.
Yeah.
Because I think like most I counted one year was like 30 writers.
Jesus.
Because you got to factor in the writers
Right.
of the songs that are sampled.
Yeah.
So it's like, how are you making money from that?
Right.
It's just, you're not really.
No. Of
So,
course not.
you
And I
know-
think that's why people are, generally they just get bombarded with stress from all sides,
Yeah.
financially, just work-wise, insurances, health insurance, rents, working 3 jobs, and then the most minor thing will just take them off
Yeah.
because they've just been under this kind of pressure for the longest time,
Yeah.
and they're just losing it.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of that here in LA, where people just have complete meltdowns.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's understandable.
Yeah. Some of
It's
the big
not-
insurance companies left too.
Right.
I think Geico left unless you're grandfathered in.
Right.
Allstate, I think, is complete. Some
You
of these
can't
just-
get fire insurance anymore.
Yeah,
Here it's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Right, I mean-
and or earthquake insurance.
right. And
It's insane.
We're due.
You can't
for both.
insure a pool anymore here
Yeah.
because it cracks because of the earthquakes. You can't insure your house against fire. If there's been a fire anywhere within the next 20 miles around here,
Yeah.
they say
and that's
no,
everywhere
sorry.
for us in the valley.
Yeah,
All of us.
exactly,
So,
all of it.
it's getting. I'm telling. I mean, and I know for a fact they've changed a lot of regulations with business as far as getting capital for your business.
Right.
Completely
Oh, yeah.
different
Oh, tell me
for
about
this
it.
state than any other state.
Exactly.
And why is all this extreme stuff happening? They want to get rid of gas cars. They actually have bills in that. Our governor's trying to add an amendment to the Constitution
Right.
to ban all guns.
Right.
But all this whole time is, we don't want to take your guns. Well, guess what? He's trying to
Right.
add an amendment.
Yeah.
So the reality is, it's so extreme left. We talk about how extreme right Florida is. California is just as extreme left. And so there has to be something in the middle. I think a lot of people are just seeing that the future here, it's going to be weird. I think something weird is going to happen. And I just don't have the same feeling. This used to be where everybody wanted to come, man.
Oh, absolutely.
This
yeah.
was like the spot.
Yeah.
And it's turning into something else, man.
It is. It is.
So-
And yeah.
No, I was going to say, just touching on something that you touched on there, from people just being pushed to their maximum, right? And I can kind of understand that. We all have stressful times in our lives. We make steps. I moved here from a different country. That's stressful to do all of that. And then you kind of settle and you kind of find a little bit of a balance again. But I will say, when you're in that place of stress and at your end, that's no place for creativity.
No,
So,
of course not.
the biggest thing that we need here is, and I think a lot of creativity came out here. It's like the sun's shining, you're feeling
Of
good when
course.
you wake up. Let's make some art. Let's be creative.
Yeah.
And it leaves no space
Oh,
at
absolutely.
all for
Yeah.
that creativity
You're right.
if you're pushed to the edge.
Yeah, because all you're doing is rat race. It's just rat
Totally,
race. And then the people that get ahead, the whole thing too in California is there's never a reach back. It's always
Right.
I did it. I'm good.
Yeah.
Getting where you fit in, or try to use somebody as much as you can and
Right.
move on to the next person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm just gonna get for me. I'm gonna go for mine.
Yeah.
And that overall philosophy just doesn't prevail in a lot of places. Now, correlation-wise, let's talk about that, because this is the first time right now, 2023, about to be July. This is the first time since 1993, 30 years,
Yeah.
that there has not been a hip-hop #1 album or song in the whole year, all
Okay.
year.
Right.
So we're almost 7 months in a year. There's
Really?
been no hip-hop #1 or song, album or song. That's the first time in 30 years. However, the biggest artist right now, touring and records right now, is a country artist.
Right.
And followed by 2 or 3 others in the top 10.
Right.
That's Morgan Wallen. You got Jelly Roll somewhere in there. Lainey Wilson somewhere. You got a lot. And all these people have a little hip-hop in their music. So what I'm seeing is we've kind of reached the pinnacle. They just had a big celebration last night, BET Awards, 50 years of hip-hop. That's 50 years, man.
Right.
It made it all the way to the Super Bowl. It's in every
Oh, yeah.
commercial. I feel like there's a shift happening. Now we got the business is weird. It's not the stuff that's coming out. It's just not special. So now we've literally seen it reflected in a real metric. So I feel like we're going to see a lot of the blowout of that if it continues. What are all these people going to do that came to California
Right.
to make it in hip hop? Well, the labels are easy to pivot. They might just
Right.
be, oh, well, we're on this now. Just
Yeah.
like in the 90s was like, oh, boy band. We
Right.
don't care about anything else but boy bands, right? Or K-pop
Right.
now.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I just feel like everything is kind of getting a restructure.
Absolutely.
a tremendous redo, man.
You know, for
a
me,
great reset. Like,
exactly. I
yeah.
mean, you know, part of living here is, of course, you know, the fact that there is an infrastructure here that's conducive to creative work in music, in film, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood. It's the mecca of the entertainment industry.
Yep.
Or always was, at
Right,
least.
yeah.
Now it's really not anymore.
Yeah.
Because so many people that even, you know, do business here in LA don't live here.
Right.
You know, you just email your stuff in and
Mm-hmm.
you get on a Zoom or you work remotely. And a lot of people who work in Hollywood production companies, they live in Idaho and
Sure.
Nebraska and wherever, just
Yeah.
work remotely since COVID. You know,
Yeah.
no need to be here.
Yeah.
And we have many friends
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
who just, you know, moved away. And it's not that mecca of the entertainment industry anymore, not film-wise.
Yep.
And, you know, for years, things been moved to Toronto and Canada
Oh, yeah.
and Georgia, you know,
yeah.
for production, and Carolinas and
Oh,
where
yeah.
have you. Because it's cheaper and people are excited, you know, about the business
Yep.
there. Nobody's excited about the entertainment industry here, it seems, anymore. People are
Right.
super jaded.
Right.
They're really pissed off all the time about how difficult it is, how expensive it is to live here, how stressful it is. And, you know, people used to come here because it's awesome to work in a place with that infrastructure, these amazing studios, and you have Paramount, and you have Universal, and you have all
Yeah.
the cool Sunset Sounds and all that
Capitol,
history and
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And then you have Laurel Canyon and that history and the Eagles and the,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the beaches and sitting, hey, let's go write a song on the beach. That sounds like a dream, you know? That doesn't happen anymore.
Well, you might
Nothing
get
like that.
jacked. You might get robbed. You go to
Exactly.
the beach now, you're gonna get.
And when
have to
was the
walk
last
over
time you
some
actually went to the
homeless.
beach to just chill and read a
Man.
book or have a cup of? Because that's like what people think, you know, it is. But once you live here, you don't have time to go to the beach, even if the beach is 2 minutes
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
You go there maybe once every couple of months.
Yeah.
You know,
I
for a
completely
photo shoot or
agree.
something. You know.
Yeah, I
And-
completely agree.
And it's just not that California that I knew before I moved here and when I moved here in the early days.
I'll
you know.
ask. So, how far do you think we are away from the beach here? It's not far.
Oh,
at all.
we can be there in 15 minutes
Oh
from
yeah,
here, easy.
Nothing.
You know.
Oh, nothing. Yeah, it's nothing.
And
And how often do we do it?
yeah, never ever.
Take a pair of sticks and a pad and just
Exactly.
chill out? No.
Nobody has time for anything. It's just a rat race. And so, you know, I always at this stage in my life, you know, I realized it's like I started being like, why? What am I doing all this for?
Right.
And in Nashville, you get to see a lot more return on your dollar. You know, there's no state tax.
Right.
Huge. And yeah, the wages as we know it for certain things might be a little less, right? But
Mm-hmm.
everything's less to live, like to eat, you know, the economy over there is less.
And you can
So it
still
doesn't-
work remotely.
Exactly. You can work remotely.
And you can travel and do what you do.
And it's much more less flight times unless you're going anywhere east, you know, or
Right.
Asia. I mean, West or Asia. Everything else is within an hour, 2 hours.
Right, exactly.
New York, you know, and so it's like you can drive to all these states. You know, in the time it would take us to drive to San Francisco, you
Right.
can drive like 5 states. So you know, it's just different, man. And honestly, I feel like the music is reflects that because
Right.
I'll hear there's a lot of just BS music and BS deals and BS stuff that's all just because of somebody knowing somebody or whatever relationship and or buying it. You know, out there it's a lot more, hey, we want a song. I mean, yeah, there's the cheesy side, but there's also a lot more of we're attempting to write a real song.
Right.
We're going to call some real people that have a high level of musicianship to play this song.
Right.
And then we're going to go tour this song and show that we are a real artist that can perform this song.
Right.
Out here, it's just everything is fake.
Yeah.
The body's fake. The
Right.
auto-tune is fake.
Yeah.
I mean, if we see that, we're seeing the correlation.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's not like just an auto-tune. It's auto-tune, BBL, you know, this,
Right.
cheek implant. Everything is fake,
Right.
including the talent.
Right.
So it's like that has to have a time where it's just gonna it has to, you know, equal out.
We've got a bunch of good friends who are working in the like young pop kind of industry, and you know, people who work here at the studio also rent space from me, and I hear all the stories about what's going on those tours and in preparation for those tours financially, and those are big pop tours. You know, current new young artists that are doing like Madison Square Garden and like big shows and big theaters, 5,000 to 10,000 people venues, and they're paying the musicians peanuts, first
Right.
of all.
Yeah.
There is no like compensation for any kind of TV or recording or broadcasting situations, and everything's tracks, live. And yes, I agree with you that I don't get that sort of vibe from anything that's happening in Nashville much. I still think
man.
that there's a lot of great musicians there, and also other places, even Europe or in
Yeah.
Asia.
Yeah.
It's very different from LA. LA
It is.
is like a pretty unique place right now where anything goes, and we'll slap anything against the wall as long as it's cheap and doesn't cost us anything. We don't have to take a risk, and we make as much money as possible from it. We'll give that a try.
Well,
And
I
if
mean-
it means to get people from abroad in, which a lot of it is
Oh, yeah.
happening, all the Korean bands are coming here,
Oh, yeah.
all the whatever Japanese J-pop, K-pop bands, and
Yeah.
a lot of European artists, because to them LA is still kind of LA. That's where the next album we'll do in LA.
Right.
And then LA survives on a lot of that myth and
Yeah.
and mysteria. People really still think it's 1979
Right.
or 1982 and Sunset Strip is buzzing, and Laurel Canyon, there's all the hippies doing their jam things, and everything's Sunset Sound and Ocean Way and all that kind of stuff. But it's not. It's really
hype
not
is
anymore.
So
The hype
I'll
is
actually
serious, man.
I'll ask a question, because you two guys, top of your game, world class, amazing musicians. Me moving here 5-6 years ago, you kind of got to work your way in, start from the bottom somewhat. And, back then I was actually still able to earn, a few $100, $300-$400 playing just some local shows. And after COVID, $100, $90.
And that
All
was
of a
back,
sudden,
that's how it was in the 90s. Bro.
Yeah.
Right.
That's literally going back 30 years of what it used to be.
Yep.
No rise with inflation at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So my process through that is like, you come out the back end of COVID, and then they're offering to pay you this pittance.
Yeah.
That obviously you kind of guys, you're not going to be in that world. But the question I have really is that I'd imagine you could go to Nashville and earn more than that, like $100, $90 post-COVID kind of small gig. But your
Well,
living costs are going to be so much less.
the living costs are less, but let me not kid you. I mean, there is that whole Broadway scene where all those clubs are on that street, right?
Yeah.
On in the Music Row area, like
Yeah.
in the downtown area. And all the clubs have windows, right? And there are bands in there that are killing.
Yeah.
So
oh yeah.
let's not forget the musicianship in some of these
Oh, yeah.
bands. You're like, wait a second, right?
Oh,
And
you
they
gotta
are
bring your
literally
game.
shifting. So 11 to 3, 3 to 7, 7 to 11. You see
Yeah.
cats wheeling their cymbals all the time. I see every time I drive around, cat wheeling
Yeah.
is still rigged down there, and these cats are killing. They're not making a huge amount of money, but they can still survive
Yeah.
because of the frequency and the fact that the consistency and the fact that it doesn't cost that much. As long as you make your life not too crazy,
Yeah.
you can survive off that. Here,
Yeah.
you can never survive off that. Unless
And
you
that's
live
kind of
in
my
your
point.
car.
You
Right.
You
know,
know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So,
the balance there just is really off now.
Completely different. And I posted a clip on my Instagram that everybody's probably seen with Ricky Lawson when he was
Yeah.
making that assessment about how when he was with the Yellow Jackets was one thing. Then it went crazy when he was with Michael
yeah.
Jackson. And then doing the same arenas as Michael almost with the boy bands, it was like less than the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
I mean, but if we're looking at the big picture, you're also going to understand a lot of these artists have 360 deals.
Right.
So they're walking in where it used to be you make the record, that's the record.
You keep the
company.
merch.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you keep your merch, keep
Whatever.
your live. They have to give everything to the
Yeah.
label now. So
Yeah.
you have management, agent, and label.
Mm-hmm.
Then it gets to what you can pay all your musicians and all that. So
Right.
inherently, it's just a bad look. Nicki Minaj said something I think that's real, where she said music isn't about talent anymore, it's about popularity. Used to be about both, but now it's kind of moved on where it's pretty much
Oh, it's been like that for a long time.
So it's like
I
do
think.
anything to
Yeah.
get popular.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like obviously Patti LaBelle had a snafu last night on the BET Awards doing her tribute to Tina. She didn't know the lyrics and the teleprompter went out. So it was very bad.
Who was that?
To Patti LaBelle.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was very bad moment. It was very as a musician, you feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable for somebody of that
Sure,
level
sure.
Yeah.
to kind of be
A legend,
embarrassed like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But the talk of that will be more relevant than any record or anything she's done in the last
Right.
10 years.
Yeah.
Just the talk today on TMZ, that automatically
Well-
is bigger than anything we've seen.
you know, celebrity used to be about some form of talent.
Yeah.
When you were a film star, you were really good at what you did, or a pop star, a rock star. You were great. I
Yeah.
mean, king of pop. You know,
Yeah.
king of rock. You know, Presley
Yeah.
and Jackson and
Yeah.
Bogart
Yeah.
and what have you. You know,
Whatever you did, you
exactly.
were a specialist. Yeah.
They were great at what they did, and now celebrities is literally just about eyeballs. Whether it's furry eyeballs and go like, what the hell, cringeworthy stuff, none of it matters anymore. You don't need any talent. You just need to do something that's completely nuts or crazy or out there or stupid or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And as long as you get eyeballs and views and likes or whatever, that's it. You're a celebrity. Whether it's a sex tape or
Right,
whatever crime, you know,
Yeah.
that you committed, it's pretty insane. And it's been a problem, I think, for true artists and, you know, genuine creative people and real talent for a long time. And I just hope, that there'll be sort of a division of this world of fame and celebrity into like the real side.
Right.
Like these are really truly, you know, talented people who mastered whatever the craft is, and then there's all the plastic world and nonsense and all the everything from the fake boobs to the Melodyne to
Right.
the
It all goes hand in hand.
AI stuff and edited CGI world. And then the real world. And I feel like LA is going down that route. It becomes sort of the mecca of the phony and the fake. And it's had that reputation for a long time to be
Yep.
very superficial and phony and, hey, how's it going? Oh, I love your dress.
Yeah.
And all that kind of, yes, totally. But now it's kind of shifted and it's become the modus operandi here. Like, however we can slap something together with AI and some CGI and some plastic boobs, and, you know, we'll make that work. And then there is sort of the real world, which I feel like Nashville is much bigger part of,
Yep.
and other places in the U.S. and the world, and much more conducive to sort of real talent, actual musicianship, or, you know, acting talent or whatever it is.
Yep.
And I'm at a point right now where I'm sort of have to kind of recalibrate and sort of orient myself and like, where am I going from here? Because LA doesn't really do it for me, you know,
Right.
in that world. It's it's
Well,
just
fake,
not happening.
bro.
And then on top of that, you get gouged.
Right.
You know,
You get
It's
gouged
like-
and it's fake. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, just like you said, I mean, and with the AI, I mean, we don't even know what, I mean, that's getting ready to even affect it even more, right?
Of course.
So, I mean, I just feel like we're kind of seeing the talent pool just be different, and you know, compared to here and there, like Nashville. But then I also see, but when you see the numbers and you see the biggest touring artist of recent history is a country artist who's like under 30, Morgan Wallen. He's
Right.
a young guy. So that's factoring everything, not just country. I'm talking about period.
Right.
So it's like that's kind of proving the correlation of the real is still real talent, right? You know, and not
Right.
that he's the greatest singer of all time, but there are some hit qualities and there's some real songs, some
Right.
real records. Yeah, there's auto-tune too. You know,
Yeah.
there is. But there's still of a quality.
Sure.
I'm going to see it live. It's going to be pretty close to the record.
Right.
You know, I mean, and then there's other people that are just downright good, right? You
Right.
know, like my guy that just had the remake of Fast Car. He has some other songs, Kind of Love We Make, and I'm going blank right
Yeah.
now. But there's some good guys. Then I watched this documentary on Jelly Roll on Hulu, and it's like, here's a guy that went to jail all these years. He was a rapper. He went to jail. He had a decent voice, and he
Right.
started singing. Very passionate. I mean, now he's doing Bridgestone Arena.
Right.
Huge artists. I mean,
Yeah.
all over. You know, and with some songs, right?
Right.
So that's like that kind of story. It's not really happening here that much. Everything here is manufactured, man.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm starting to get to the conversations with my peer groups where I'm seeing people that used to be 100% against that stuff. They've given in.
Oh yeah.
So now it's like, oh man, it's not about how good they are.
Right.
It's like, what are the numbers?
Yeah.
Well, what are they streaming? I don't care if they're good.
You
What are
know,
they streaming?
totally. You know, for
That's
me,
tough, man.
For me, like, there's situations where, okay, somebody wants a track, I use a track that I wrote. I'm like, yeah, cool, but, you know, you like the track, I just want to, you know, tweak it a little bit, you know, replace some of the stuff I programmed with some real stuff, get some real musicians on it, you know, spend a little bit of money on it, make it really good. And they're like, it's fine the way it is. I'm like, no, I really don't want to put this out there the way it is. I want to, like, not have my demo vocals on it and get somebody to really sing
Sure.
and play a real guitar on it. You know,
Yeah.
I need a week. And then you do something, you record something, you do something that you truly believe as a musician and with, you know, decades of experience that is better. It's a better product.
Right.
It's got more life and more substance and more nuance to it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And you put it out there, and then they're like, oh, let's not use that at all, or let's
Right.
give people the choice to choose something else. And of course, there's never any talk about money or you getting compensated for the
Oh, of
actual
course.
work or production
Oh,
cost or anything like
please.
that. It's just like, okay, that was totally for nothing and
Yeah.
useless and waste of time and
Yeah.
money, and people don't appreciate it or even hear the difference anymore.
Right.
And nobody needs it and wants it, and it's just, you know, and I feel that like that a lot, that you're
Right.
putting so much into it, and you know, and you're getting nothing back. And
Yeah.
doing this on a daily basis in
Yeah.
what we do is extremely frustrating. And then you go home and you're like, okay, here's another $10,000 bill for that, and here
Sure.
you got to spend, you know, 15 grand on this, and
Yeah.
then, you know, you spend your daily whatever $700 on that nonsense and get
Yeah.
nothing for it, and it's just continuous. You know, it's just permanent frustration here. It seems.
Yeah.
And you know, ironically, we are doing well here still.
right,
You know,
right.
but you know, if you make a look at the median income in an area like this,
Mm-hmm.
it's, you know, if you make that kind of money anywhere else in the U.S.,
Oh, you're
you're like a super rich person.
Right, yeah.
If you make $1 million a year here, you're like barely scraping
It's
by.
rare. Dude, you don't have any feeling of, oh my God. Like,
Exactly.
because the first of all, that million is like 600
Exactly.
off rip, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, when you factor in all the crap that's going on,
It's nothing.
It doesn't sustain.
And the problem is not only that, even if you're making a really good, if you make $300,000 a year here, you're poor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're poor,
Bro,
I
and
mean,
that's nowhere like that else in the
exactly.
country.
If you make
Except New York,
$300,000 a year anywhere else in the U.S.,
Yeah.
you're you know, except for maybe, I don't know, New York,
New York City,
exactly.
and Miami. Nah, not even Miami.
No,
not even
no.
Miami. New York,
and then you're well off.
right?
You know, you pay
Yeah.
your house off in 2 years if
Right.
you want. You know,
Hey, man.
and
Yeah.
and anywhere else in the world, you're rich.
Yeah.
actually, you know.
Oh, dude,
And it's
it's
crazy.
crazy,
And also
man.
on top of that, not only do you feel poor even if you make $1 million a year,
Yeah.
but there's so many people here who make so much more money
Right.
than that.
Right.
Ridiculous amounts. You're always surrounded by people who make 100 times more than you.
Yeah.
Or it's at least it seems. But also, I
It's-
know for a
it's
fact
tricky.
that people just make a ton of money here, and I don't know how the hell And at one point, this will become so super elitist here,
Right.
that you just can't live in LA unless you make 10, 15 a year.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
you know what? But see, the thing I'm looking at is, I'm looking at the future, and I feel like we're seeing it. Look at San Francisco, though.
Right.
That was the .com boom place.
Right.
So tremendous millions and hundreds of millions and billions. Dude, you can't hardly even drive down the street with your trunk not open,
Right.
for fear of getting robbed at
I
the
know.
stoplight.
Yeah.
Right now,
I mean,
today.
the tenderloin, you know. And
Oh, you can't even
like,
go over
yeah,
there, man.
Yes,
you can't
forget
even go
about
over
it.
there, and it's like the cops are not coming. They're not going
Right,
there.
right.
They're going. They're losing police.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is where the governor is. He's up north, and it's like, this is what that place that just 10 years ago was the place where trillions of dollars were going through, and it's like a badland up there, wasteland, man.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, I mean, I'm looking at LA like, okay, maybe it's gonna be like this in 5 years. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I just know that it's not trending the right direction.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
yeah.
Well, you know, just taking it, you know, zooming out. You know, I'm an immigrant here now, an American. You know, and I look at London and I felt like I was leaving London, 6-7 years ago, and coming to a better, nicer place with better infrastructure and things like that. And they're having their own kind of problems there.
Yeah.
But, there's a few things. I got to ask, do we think it's kind of a global thing? So obviously we're in one of the major cities, New York, San Francisco. If you think of London and other places, I know that inflation in the UK has gone through the roof right now,
crazy.
and they're really struggling. If I was a musician living and working there, I was a busy guy in London. Like, I don't think I'd be doing any better there than here.
Well,
So is it just like a major city thing, that polarity, or is it?
globally, we're definitely seeing things change. I mean, I think the funny thing now is your move to here. It's like, as of this year, it's like not different, a lot different in the weather pattern. That's
Right,
That's the
for
biggest
sure.
change,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But like, I think globally, I mean, inflation's going crazy. I mean, listen, we also had something that happened right before the pandemic, right, which was crypto.
Yeah.
Right, so it's like we had crypto just kind of coming around, and then during the pandemics when it flourished, and now it's around, but you don't hear about it like that, and
Right.
it's just like it never really became the standard, and you just had a whole financial change in the whole world because crypto was something that everybody could do from no matter what country, so it was
Yeah.
almost like a global currency at that
Yep.
point, right? So it's like we've just seen so much craziness, and now everything's readjusting, and it's like, I just don't see. I think California has really, especially LA, and this industry and everything. It's just didn't come out good on the other side.
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
I just don't feel any positive motion. I feel like we're going backwards.
Oh, absolutely. And I do think it's a global situation. I mean, if you look at inflation, world economy, the war, how it's impacting things and what have you, technology, etc. And it's just that in a city like LA, you're getting gouged so much more than in other places.
Yeah.
If we lived like in Boise, Idaho, where it's
Yeah.
cheaper, or wherever,
Yeah.
somewhere in Minnesota or something,
Yeah.
you can live in a small town and do what we do.
Yeah.
Basically. And yes, you're not in the mix with the big studios and the hangs on Sunset Strip, but is it worth it? And yes, you're not getting the beaches and the weather, but is it worth it?
Right.
Well, we
And
never
are those
go
things
there.
Still
Exactly,
happening? I
exactly.
don't feel like that. They're not really. It's not even like that anymore. Really.
Exactly,
There's
exactly.
small little things, but it's not like it was.
Yeah,
Man.
and
It's
I
not-
remember, my sister used to live here, and they moved back to Europe.
Yeah.
Because they said the same thing. Even whatever it was 5 years ago, they're like, you know what? The weather's not worth it. It's
Yeah.
not worth getting gouged here day in, day out, and
Yeah.
getting exploited and sort of abused almost by the system,
Yep.
by the laws, etc.
Yep.
It's just not that California dream anymore.
And-
No, I
you-
think that's the bottom line, bro.
Yeah.
I think the dream has slowly dissipated, and for a lot of people, it is a
Yeah.
nightmare. Like, a lot of people come here
Yeah.
for the dream and realize it's a nightmare.
Exactly.
And I've often thought, and it might just be my outsider's kind of view of it, often a lot of people, I mean, I'm here, this is my home now. Maybe not California forever, but, the US is my home. But I've often thought, like, LA's a really weird anomaly that our local economic system is really skewed with people who live in the middle of nowhere, a different country or a different state. They might save up and come here, move to like Hollywood they've got their little like 50 grand in their pocket, and it's going to last them, however many months or
Right.
years in their jump to, kind of have their success. And I think it kind of distorts things because there's always that treadmill. There's always that next person on the plane or the bus coming
Sure.
in with their little, jump off point of
Right.
their 50 grand, 100 grand. They
Right.
throw it in to the, casino table. They may not win. They go back home. There's
Right.
always a new person coming in
Yeah.
to kind of roll the dice.
I had a guy fly in last week, and we did a lesson. And when I do lessons, I don't usually set it to drums. Usually, it's all talking about the reality of life and the
Yeah.
business and what
Right.
you're trying to do. So he was a young guy, just graduated school. He came out here to just make some rounds, and so, he's from Ohio. And I was like, well, what do you want to do? I said, you have some skills. You got your engineering skills.
Right.
You're a decent drummer. You have your songwriting skills. He played me some stuff, and I was like, okay, I mean, in LA, I don't know. I don't know what that's gonna really
Right.
do, right? I said, but it shows you have some skills or whatever. What do you want to do? He was like, well, I want to be everybody. I want to be a
Right.
songwriter and producer. what does that really mean? You know, because, you know, when you come to LA, there's so many people in any of the disciplines,
Right.
any instrument, you know, any producer. It's so many people. The people are here.
Right.
The most expensive house in American history is Jay-Z and Beyonce just bought it in
Right.
Malibu.
Yeah.
$200 million.
Right.
Right. So you're dealing with that competing in your same market that
I
you're
know.
trying to be in. What are you going to do when
Right.
you have no track record? You know, and it's harder and harder to establish that, right?
Right.
So it's very tricky, man. And I always try to think, what would I do if it was like 10 years, or if I started over? If I was starting
Right.
over and I was in my 20s, I think I would, because I was headed at that time to Georgia. That was when Atlanta was having a boom.
Yeah.
I was headed to Atlanta, but I stopped in Philly to make a record, and then I met my first wife, and then everything changed.
Right.
So I already kind of realized now I had this feeling in the late 90s. You know,
Right.
I was trying
Oh.
to get out of here, and I didn't do it.
100%.
You know what I mean? So it's like now, you know, falling in love with Nashville and just seeing how Nashville has gone crazy
Right.
in the last couple of years. I mean, In-N-Out's headquarters are being built in Franklin.
Right.
That they
Yeah.
had just opened Raising Cane's. It's like it's not the same place,
Mhm.
and it's literally becoming a city on par with LA as far
Yeah.
as just the industry vibe. It's there.
Yeah.
They have what we used to have. They have it, man.
Yeah.
Cats, session cat, you know, cats hanging,
Right.
you know, shows everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just, bro, it's so, you know, it's so cool, man. It's
Yeah.
such a cool energy out there,
Yeah.
you know, and I just don't feel that in LA anymore, man.
I hear you. I hear you. I think we have to wrap it up.
Yeah,
there's
Yeah.
so much more we can talk about regarding
Yeah.
this, and we should do another episodes or 3 on all that because these are very long conversations and really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, thanks for listening,
Yep.
and tune in again next time.
Yep. Trevor Lawrence Jr.
And Thomas Lang.
on TL Squared.